Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Tea with Jamie. I have made my cup of tea and I am sitting down and taking my first sip of said cup of tea. I'm doing the podcast today under strange circumstances. Earlier on I had a 3-4 hour nap. I have had the craziest, busiest week. I've been applying for a lot of different jobs and just trying to figure out how to make a little bit more passive income. And I've gone all over the place. I've gone, I was going to go back to school and I was going to do a master's in psychology, and I was going to do go and work with children from backgrounds similar to mine and try and help people and help kids and all this kind of stuff. And it's just been so busy. Eventually I've ended up working for an events company, sort of doing barista work and bar work. I also applied for a local coffee shop near me, basically doing barista work too. But at the same time, I was also applying for sales positions and marketing positions, because if I've got random listeners on here who aren't my friends and family, thank you very much, friends and family, for listening to this. It really, really does mean a lot. But if I have random listeners on this, I was for I still am a model, and I was a very highly rated model for a long time, and I worked with a lot of companies, and I did a significant amount more magazines than I did campaigns, but I did big campaigns for Tommy Hilfiger and all this kind of stuff. So I still have that going on as well as everything else. So that kind of gave me the marketing experience. In terms of marketing myself, I used to have to walk into rooms with some very powerful people, and actors, couldn't be afraid, etc. And just had to always be myself and be on. So, I had some experience in that, but I was also applying for those jobs, and I've had a bit of a whirlwind time in regards to my future and thinking about how I'm going to support myself and all that kind of stuff, even though this is by no means a desperate situation. And if I really look at my life and I go back, to the age of 16, I've had some desperate times in my life which I've really had to get myself through, and also with the help of some friends sometimes and all that kind of stuff. I haven't always been alone. But it's been a strange week of a couple of weeks of figuring out what I want to do, what's my purpose, how I'm going to move forward in life, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just been really stressful. But at the same time, I got this job, this events job, and I started working again, so that felt great. I actually ended up working at Tinder HQ, which was random after using the app for so many years, and their affiliate apps, i.e. Hinge and all that kind of stuff. It was very interesting working at the HQ, and I must have made over 400 different coffees, and I must have steamed milk over 400 times. Jesus, it was crazy. But I love working hard. It's definitely a part of my fabric and a part of my nature. I like being pushed to the point of just having to get into a flow and just working. It makes me feel really good. But at the same time, I was applying for this marketing job, as I say, and a few times when applying for jobs, I didn't think that I would get a call back, or I would get an interview or something like that. And every single one that I actually ended up applying for, I got interviews for, and I got most of the jobs that I went for. Which again is really good for my sense of self, etc. as well. But I wasn't sure I was going to get any of these callbacks late last week and early in this week. So I was in a really kind of stressed situation, kind of automatically feeling down upon myself. I'll tell you one thing. I've got myself to a position where I don't have too many people in my life who are really directly connected to me on a day-to-day basis and know me in and out. I just don't have that many people. So a lot of the time, it's myself who is responsible for guiding myself. I've had the fortune of having some family members, like my mom, for example, who I've been able to reach out recently, and I've got a friend, his name's Travis, you might be listening to this, who also has been an ear for me to just talk to me about stuff, and I just, in a non-judgmental way. And so I have had some help, but a lot of it has also just been on myself, because I'm so used to just being on my own now, and not really having many people taking the time to actually just sit down with me, and and feeling like they genuinely care. And so I genuinely care about myself, but at the same time I'm also a realist to myself. So when I wasn't getting these callbacks and interviews, God, it felt like the acting audition process again. I was like, oh, I'm not worthy for these jobs and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, I got all of these like chuck interviews back, and I worked at that cafe at Tinder, and I went to and I did that, and then I did that 2 days in a row, 7:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. And I'm just working solidly on my feet, and as I say, making hundreds of drinks. So I've been super tired, but then this morning at 8:30, I had another interview for this marketing company. It's basically going to train me up to be like a business manager, and it's quite attractive in that sense, but it's a lot of work. It's 6 days a week, 50 hours a week. I don't get paid much for the first month, and then it kind of builds up from there. I met the whole team, and everyone was really nice and all that kind of stuff, and it was great. But it also really, really made me think. And at the same time, I was also really, really tired, because I've been on my own schedule for a while now. And all of a sudden having to wake up at a specific time and go to bed every single time. When you have to go to bed, you can't go to bed. I don't know what the hell it is. I'm fine usually. I'm in bed at 10:30. Maybe I sound boring, but I'm in bed at 10:30 and I'm up at 6. That's just how I like to live. I love to be up with the birds. But that gets me onto where I am at right now, which is, it is, what time is it? Oh, I'll check my 2016 Fitbit. It is 10 to 3, because today I fell asleep for like 4 hours. I fell asleep. I had like a nap, a really, really long nap, which was lovely. I love naps, I'm not going to lie. And I love this time of night as well, because it's so calm, it's so quiet. There's no one around. There's no one that needs my attention and all that kind of stuff. But after napping, you feel a little vulnerable sometimes. And also you can't sleep, hence why I'm up at 3 a.m. in the morning. But not only that, but I decided to like practice my guitar and practice some singing, and so I practiced, and I practiced for 2 hours. It's a long time. And at the end of it, I was like, okay, here I go. I'm going to try and do one of my favorite songs, which is Weird Fishes Arpeggi by Radiohead on their album In Rainbows. Radiohead is one of my favorite bands of all time. And then I'll probably go into a story about that at some point. But and I was playing this song, and oh man, I have played this song so much, and I just can't get it. All it requires is me to fingerpick 3 strings in a really rhythmical way. Just constantly, over the whole song. And I just can't seem to get it. Especially when I'm recording, I can't seem to bloody get it. And it drives me nuts, and it makes me really down on myself. I've tried to be a good guitarist for so long, and my skill level is so much higher than obviously it ever was before, and I do consider myself to be able to play guitar, especially write music and all that kind of stuff. I do consider myself to be able to do that, but when I weigh myself up against the standards of others that I know, it's just, I just crap on myself sometimes. This is another problem if you don't have like a really solid social structure, and you're reliant upon yourself for self-motivation and self-criticism, which I find so important to the human process, is criticism. And so I do that to myself, but sometimes it can come through a really harsh lens, and maybe it's based on my past and my past experience or something, but it can come through a really harsh lens. And but I was recording the whole process, and during the whole process there was this like 40-second clip of me being like, I suck at guitar, and I'll like look at the camera and I'm like, I suck. And I really felt that way in the time, and I love being vulnerable like that. As I say, I've expressed it in my videos, I've expressed it on my podcast. I like to be vulnerable. I feel like a very strong person. I feel like I can tear down a mountain. I feel like I could take on anyone that wants to challenge me. I feel like a very, very strong person in general. If I'm really backed up against the corner, I might mope. I might be a little sad sometimes, but if I'm backed up against a corner, I'm a survivor. If I really go into detail of what I've been through in my life, I'm a survivor, and no one will mess with me when I get into that point if I'm backed into a corner. So because of that strength, I love my vulnerability, and I feel safe to be vulnerable because I know if anyone wants to challenge me on that vulnerability, then I'll be able to, use the full weight of my capacity against them. And time has proven that that's a lot for people to deal with, and I've always been able to protect myself, albeit it makes me a little bit lonelier because it also drives people away. However, quit smoking 2 months ago. Congratulate me, everyone. If you're sitting at a computer or washing the dishes, please give me a little round of applause. I'm still on the nicotine, but in a month's time, I'll be like, I don't even smoke Juul anymore. And then in 3 months' time, I'll be like, I don't even drink caffeine anymore. So it won't be called Tea with Jamie. It'll be called Jamie. But yeah, getting back to the story that I was talking about. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and this is the time that I decide to do my podcast. Well, I'll tell you exactly why this is the time to do my podcast. Because when I was with my therapist 2 weeks ago, when I'm with her, I just start railing off on all the things that are in my mind and are constantly pent up in my mind all the time. And she really was like, Jamie, like, you have so much in your head, and so much of your thoughts and your feelings are so well reasoned out. You've really thought about them, and they're really true to you, like, whether they're right or they're wrong, they're really true to me. And so I had this nap, and I woke up and I had that recording session, and I wasn't happy with it and all this kind of stuff. And I posted to Instagram and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's a little bit later now, so it's time for me to go to bed. It's time for me to put on my fantasy audiobook, 15-minute sleep timer, dark room, and start nestling down and go to sleep. That's the time. But no, all of a sudden I'm on YouTube and I see Andrew Tate, PBD podcast. And, I say Andrew Tate. How many people out of the 5 that are going to listen to this, or even listen to this far into the podcast, how many people are out there, as soon as I say Andrew Tate, would just cringe? Because that was me, and that is me, honestly. That still is me. But let me just talk about my experience. I listened to this Andrew Tate podcast with PBD, and it's these 2 gentlemen, and it's sort of like a debate situation where they're all sitting around a table. It's honestly on the screen next to me. If you're watching the YouTube video, like, it's on the screen next to me. I got an hour and 21 minutes into it, and I've heard so much about Andrew Tate, and I've seen him so much over the last few months. Like, and especially during the pandemic, there was a point where I was like, what is going on? Like, I've never heard of this guy, but every single short he's on, every single YouTube short he was on, I was like, what is he doing? Is he paying for this? Is he paying for this exposure and all this kind of stuff? I was like, this has to be fake, like this fake sort of elevating of this person. And I was like, it was just confusing me. I was like, he must have incredible business tactics. He must be paying all the internet bot farms, which are out there in their millions. There are so many bot farms which will give you likes on your videos, likes on your, and listens on your podcast even, which I'll never be doing and I never will do. But I was like, what is he doing? Like, and I was watching all these like short clips, and all these short clips were just terrible, like just terrible, with a terrible sort of attitude, and all the things that sometimes I don't like about men. He was basically purporting all the things which I kind of grew up with, because I have 4 brothers, and I grew up in a very masculine environment. I had a very pretend masculine stepfather, who in reality was a very weak man, and But my brothers weren't weak. My brothers were very strong. They were strong mentally and they were strong physically. And I was the youngest of them, except for my little brother, who's my stepdad's son, so he's my half brother. Except for him, he was always quite weak mentally as well. And I don't think that's genetic. It's just he was always a victim, and I feel like I was never allowed to be a victim. Honestly, if I was a victim, I just would have got absolutely pulverized by my brothers, and no one would be there to protect me. Whereas my little brother had the protection. That's a story for another time. But anyway, Andrew Tate, and so I'd seen all these videos about him, and all of them are, this man is terrible and all this kind of stuff, and I completely agreed. But at the same time as when I was watching these videos, and I'm a super curious person, so I'll never judge something off an instant. So a lot of times I would look at some of the longer format things that he would do, and some of the things that he said I did agree with. Which, as I say, if you're someone that's only watched clips and you don't really do much further research, you're going to think I'm a disgusting human being for even slightly agreeing with someone else that you consider a disgusting human being. But, the world's not black and white, it's grey, and there's always room for taking nuggets of information, and that's the beauty of debate. That's how you get to the core of a problem, or you find compromises by talking about the stuff which you really hate to hear and confronting it. That's just the way it goes. But I was watching this podcast with him, and it's 5 hours long, and I got into it for 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I even got my little notebook out because I was like, hey, I'm going to write about this. I'm going to write the time signatures, and I'm going to discuss each moment and my take on it, etc. Like, for example, he goes on to this kind of diatribe about the fact that he lives in Romania and that there's more corruption in Romania, well, easily accessible corruption in Romania. So if he's got a speeding ticket, he can just pay the officer $50, whereas in America, if you're just an average person, you've got a speeding ticket and you try and bribe the cop, then you're screwed. But if you're a senator's son, it's all good. Or if you're if you're attached politically or locally politically, then you're all good. So he was kind of talking about the differences in corruptions and talking about more accessible corruption. And then he went on to say, I've never had a criminal charge against me in regards to women. And I was like, yeah, but you've just spent the last 10 minutes talking about living in places that are corrupted, that you can use your money. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that there were some things, which, as polemic as he is, there was some small weaknesses in it. But you have to credit the fact that, even in that hour and 20 minutes that I watched, he never broke his stride, and really backed up a lot of his thoughts and opinions, even with the people that he was sort of debating with. And so just watching it got all my emotions riled up, and it was even harder for me to get back in bed and lie down and go to sleep, and then I'm bloody scrolling YouTube and I see H3 podcast. I hate that podcast. I just hate it. And I say hate's a really, really strong word. I left a big comment on the podcast because, as I say, I really just can't stop when I have something to say. And I left a comment, and I'm just like, it's just lazy work. It's lazy work. When people have a huge platform, they get corrupted by the income that it brings in. And so all of a sudden they start to do these podcasts and these talks focusing on the most trending issue at the time, and it just creates this sort of echo chamber, and I just don't think it helps anyone. Look, I want to help people. I want people to help people. I know from personal experience, life is so hard, and I have struggled so much, and I struggle mentally so much sometimes, and I don't feel like it's a weakness of myself. I feel like it's the environment that I'm in 99% of the time. There's people that tell you they care, but they don't really care. There's people that can't see in front of their own nose, that expression. It's a very tough society to live in, and the more that everyone dances around and tries and align themselves, similar to what I was talking about in my last podcast, the more complicated it gets, the more lonely you feel, the less you're able to reach out. Like, just for an example, I posted that little section of me struggling with my guitar practice on Instagram with a caption saying motivational speaker coming to a place near you soon. But the video was me being like, I bloody suck. God, I suck. And you can tell I'm a little depressed about it. In the moment, you can tell that I'm a little depressed about it. And then as the story continues, my Instagram story continues, I basically say, well, that's just the way it is. And I'm going to practice a little bit more each day and get better and better. And then I start playing again, So the truth of that is I start playing again. But I started to realize that probably wasn't what was going to be interpreted by the majority of people that watched the video. The majority of the people that watched the video would have solely interpreted my upsetness at myself for not being as good as I want to be on guitar. But that wasn't the point of the video. The point is that this happens to everyone that's artistic, everyone that's creative, and everyone is artistic and creative. That's the point. But it happens to everyone. We get down on ourselves and we have those vulnerable moments. And the most important thing you can possibly do is just get back on the horse. But anyway, so I was watching this Andrew Tate podcast, which I never really thought I'd ever be doing. But as I say, I'm a curious individual. And it just got me really motivated. It got me motivated because it made me realize, I'm a very outspoken person and I have a lot of opinions on a lot of things, and I will never shy away from saying it, even in group settings. It's practically impossible for me. I grew up, as I say, with a stepdad who would constantly belittle and berate us, or try to, and do stuff. And even when I was a kid, I just could not help it. I just couldn't help it. I'd speak back. I'd speak back all the time. And I couldn't help it, and I still can't help it to this day. If I'm in a social situation and people say something that I kind of find it funny when people have these like incredibly polemic ideas, but they don't back it up with anything, and it's just what they've heard, and they haven't thought through their opinions and looked for their own personal experiences and tried new tactics to sort of flesh out the opinion. They just take what they've read and that's it. Like, I'll never forget once I went back to England almost 5 years ago. And I'm talking to my niece, and my niece at the time is, oh my God, this was actually in 2016, I think. So she was, oh my God, she was like 8. She was so young, maybe younger, maybe like 7 years old or something. And I'll never forget, I've just come back from LA and I'm in my hometown of Whitley Bay in Newcastle, completely disconnected from politics in America. And I'll never forget my niece asking me, Jamie, do you like Donald Trump? And I said, this isn't my belief, by the way, I don't like Donald Trump. But I said to her, because I'm a devil's advocate, I'd be like, I love Donald Trump. Why don't you like Donald Trump, my 7-year-old niece? And my sister-in-law punched me. Like, she literally punched me in the arm and was like, Jamie, don't say that. But in the moment, I was like, why is my 7-year-old niece talking to me about Donald Trump? Like, she's 7 and she lives in England and Whitley Bay. Like, she can't have any opinion on Donald Trump, surely. Like, she shouldn't even... The only way that my 7-year-old niece could have an opinion on Donald Trump is if she's been indoctrinated by media, by her school, by her parents. That's the only way. Because otherwise she wouldn't care. She'd more care about dancing or, me taking her to the coffee shop and getting her a hot cocoa, or just going on a little day out with her uncle, or going down to the beach or something, or, trying to get me to go, scootering with her. But asking me about Donald Trump, like, that was just absolutely wild to me. And so, as I say, it's always been very interesting when people have very, very formed opinions when they don't have much research and in-depth analysis to really ever back it up. And I feel like that's a lot of us, honestly. And so obviously when I see a podcast with Andrew Tate, I'm watching it because I'm looking for the flaws in the argument. I'm looking for the flaws in the human being. I'm looking for the positives. I'm looking for the negatives. I'm just curious. If someone's so powerful, someone has so much of a following, then how the hell did they get it? They must have something that's applying to many, many people. And as I say, it would be diminishing to say, oh, he's just a misogynist, followed by a bunch of misogynists, etc., etc. It'd just be really diminishing of human nature in general if it was something so simple as that. And yeah, and so I started watching it, and man, one of the things which just stuck out to me, as I say, was how opinionated he was and how resolute he was in his opinions and how he could back them up with his own personal stories and philosophies, etc., etc. As I mentioned earlier, there are flaws. 100% there are flaws, but just the ability to speak your mind without worrying about other people and ensuring that your thoughts that you're speaking are well thought out. I thought, it was like 2:15 a.m. and I'm like, nah, this isn't the time to be having these thoughts and feelings, Jamie. But I've felt like that my whole life. I felt like that my whole life. I've always felt as though I have something different to say than the common narrative of people that I'm around. And oftentimes I've had, times where people have not wanted to talk to me because of that. There's been I've got gallows humor for sure sometimes because, as I say, I've gone through struggle, and people that go through struggle have sometimes just got a darker sense of humor because life's really hard, so make a joke of it. That's just the way it is, Oh, I'm really, really depressed. I'll make a joke about it. It makes everything easier. And, and so I watched this podcast and, all of a sudden I'm just looking back on myself, and I'm looking back at my life, and I'm looking back on all these times when all these people that I've known and all these relationships that I've had where I've spoken my honest truth, but I've still stood there. I've still stood there being based upon our lives and our history, I love you. I love everyone that I've ever known. I've loved everyone that I've ever had a significant time spent around them and experiences with. I love them all, and if I love someone, then I'll always be stood there, unless it's toxic, unless it's incredibly toxic and both of us aren't doing the work. But I will always be stood there, and I'll always say my piece, and I still always will do that. But I used to be way more vocal. I used to post on Facebook my thoughts and opinions, but, I'd get a lot of negative stuff a lot of the time, and people calling me stupid, and, based upon my own sort of, judgment of myself in terms of my intelligence. And that's also based from childhood. I knew a lot of smart people who really kind of flexed how smart they were. I would back down. I wouldn't back down and change anything. I just couldn't deal with the fraud feeling, the imposter syndrome. But as I say, my therapist, she was like, Jamie, get rid of this imposter syndrome. Just get rid of it. And, she's right. How am I meant to flesh out how I think and feel unless I talk about it? How am I meant to get better at a podcast unless I do it? It's the same with everything. You've got to do it or, it goes nowhere. And it was 2 a.m, and I had a lot to say, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, which I've already finished, by the way. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk, because when my emotions are high, when there's a lot rolling around in my head and I want to talk and I want to say something, a lot of people replied to that Instagram thing that I posted about me being unhappy with my guitar stuff, and I sent a few people messages on it, and I'm so riled up. I was sending people messages and being like, oh, well, this is I'm just it's basically all my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts were going everywhere. They were getting sent to people that weren't safe spaces to send them to, and so I systematically unsent all of them. And I was like, well, obviously, Jamie, right now you're in a situation where you have a lot you want to say and a lot of thoughts and feelings, and you can't use these people. If you talk to these people about it, you're not going to feel better. So you need to talk to yourself about it. And so I decided to come on here and talk about this. And talk about Andrew Tate, and talk about my jobs, and talk about all of that kind of stuff. Because, as I say, I want to be more vocal. I do feel like I've got something to say, and I'm going to get people on my podcast, and we're going to talk about all this stuff. And I'm going to have opposing narratives, and I'm going to have people that make me feel vulnerable and make me feel that imposter syndrome. And I'm going to have to be able to stand and be like, look, my opinions and my beliefs are formed from analysis and deep thought and time spent, and also, walking the talk that I talk, walking the walk, talk walk. So, and I'm gonna have to get used to doing this, and the world's just not a safe space for it. So many people that I meet, they don't want to think about it. It's really difficult to think about it when you're trying to survive and you're trying to live, and oh my God, there's so many examples of this stuff. People who are like really, really well-meaning and lovely people, but the things that they promote and the jobs that they take just don't reflect that, because at the same time we all need to make money. But at the same time, Andrew Tate in this, and these two other people are talking, he got blocked on everything. His banks blocked him, Uber blocked him, like everything got taken down. And it really made me worried. It really, really made me worried, because as I said in the last podcast, we have to have counter narratives out there, despite out there and visible. You can't squash everything down. If you squash everything down, you make it more ironclad, and you make it more extreme and more fanatical. So if you really look back to 20 years ago, everything was debated. There wasn't this powerhouse of YouTube and Google. Google is the worst, honestly. Like, if you look at Google search results now, it is just so tailored to governments and to companies and to narratives. Going on Reddit in the last few months has just been really toxic for me, because the front page is constantly filled with outrage porn and all of this political stuff all the time. And, it's just so toxic, because it's all of the same note. And every time you say a counter narrative, you get downvoted to hell. And yeah, downvotes mean nothing, but a downvote does represent a community not respecting your opinion. And that sucks. As human beings, we need community. We want to join communities, no matter how much of a strong person I am. I still need acknowledgement. I need acknowledgement. That's why I go to therapy. Not only for the acknowledgement, but also for the times where she's like, Jamie, this is cognitive dissonance. And this isn't the way the world is. It's just the way that you're seeing it through your own experience. And I listen to that, obviously. And I need criticism. That's why I self-criticize myself. Because I need to be able to form my own opinions. The one thing that depressed me about the Andrew Tate thing was just the simple fact that he mentions, if you don't cheat in this world, then you're not going to get anywhere. And it's just so true. Like, it really is quite true. I don't think it's absolute, but I think it's quite true. Like, people take shortcuts and people cheat all the time, and I will never forget. This is an honest, hand on my heart story about my childhood. I was at school once, and we had a test, and I hadn't studied or anything, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, and so I looked at the desk next to me and copied someone else's paper, what they were doing, and cheated a little bit, and I got my result back, and it was okay. But the most pressing thing about this result, even though it wasn't great, was I just didn't feel like I'd accomplished anything. In that moment, I really felt like I deserved the grade that I got for not studying, and cheating was worse than getting a 0, because cheating was worse than getting a 0. Sorry about that. I accidentally, in my excitement, pressed my spacebar, which stopped recording. If you're on the YouTube, I won't cut that out, but on the podcast, you'll hear a little repeat. But yeah, so not studying, I deserved the 0, and the cheating felt worse because it wasn't my own. And I don't know why, but from a really, really young age, I really had this sense that the only thing of worth is if I do it, if it comes from myself. That's the acknowledgement that I need to receive. I need to receive acknowledgement from not cheating. But that philosophy throughout my life has held me back so much. It has held me back so much. There are so many times I could have cheated. There are so many times that I could have cheated. I could have cheated at university. I could have copied someone else's idea. I could have picked the best people to be in a group with. But I never did. I honestly, hand my heart, never did. And I graduated university at the top of my class. There are times when I was a professional model that I could have cheated, and in that regards, could have cheated was by befriending stylists, befriending photographers who are obviously only interested in me for the way that I look and for possibly, getting with me and all this kind of stuff. There were countless times that I could have cheated and gotten to where I could have got way quicker. Especially with Instagram, I could fill my feed up with semi-naked pictures of myself, or just have a photographer take beautiful pictures of me all the time and just post them all the time. And I could have bought followers like everyone else has done. I could have bought verified checks, which everyone else has done. If you Google my name, there's significant more media about me than half the people that got bloody verified checks. But I just never did. I never got that. I never wanted to cheat. I never wanted to cheat in jobs, sales positions, marketing positions. It feels like cheating. After looking at my looking at this job and going through the interview process and everything, I was on Reddit, and then all of a sudden this meme comes up, and it's talking about how rich people got rich, and how rich people really got rich. And how rich people got rich was like hard work, gumption, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And how people really got rich was the lottery of life, i.e. being born into a rich family, or by mercilessly abusing the working class. And that is just, it's extreme, and it's an ideology, and it's not entirely true, but there is a very truthful nature to it. There are a lot of people who really have worked so hard and become rich and successful. I'm not crapping on that whatsoever. But there are also a lot of people that are walking around with success coming from, good homes, support structures, lots of money, and they're walking around as if it's all them, and they made all of their own personal gain. And I don't mind if they have that and they've achieved that. I just do expect a certain humility to come with it, which very, very, very rarely does come with it. There are just so many examples of this. There are just so many examples. A big example as well is as a musician. I'm down on myself. I'm making these videos. I'm being all sad and like, oh my God, I've been playing guitar for 10 years and I still can't play this bloody song. Yet there's other musicians that walk around as if they're God's gift to the earth and they're some kind of musical savant, even though their parents put them into music classes when they were 5 years old and made sure they kept to it and supported them every single show they ever went to and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, look, you have put in the hard work, don't get me wrong, but you've also had a significant amount of privilege around it, which is not bad, which is amazing and is what should happen. But at the same time, there's a humility that comes with it. It's like, I couldn't do this without this. And actually being genuine about their privilege. And I couldn't have done this unless when I was really feeling low, I had that person who really knew me and gave me that little piece of advice. There are lots of things which will stall you on your path in life. There are so many things. And having someone to come in and pick you up in those moments is invaluable. So what are the people that don't have those people meant to do? What are the people who don't have the people who are constantly encouraging them to practice? What are the people who are meant to do who don't have parents who directly involve themselves in helping a child's self-esteem or actively destroy their self-esteem meant to do? Are they just meant to fall back into the shadows and make themselves feel like they're worthless pieces of crap because they didn't win the lottery in regards to all of those things that I just mentioned? No, they really shouldn't. As I say, as with me, I love creativity in humans. It's what got me my high mark in graduating, because I believe in the philosophy of human beings and human beings' desire to express themselves in all facets. And I believe everyone has something incredibly special to be able to create and express themselves. And I just feel like so many of us just get cut down at our knees about it. And it's very hard to keep a momentum going and to get really great when you're constantly pushing yourself, and not only that, having active negative influences who are pushing you down further, or friends that say they're friends but don't help you further, or look past their own noses. I've constantly repeated, and I'm not saying that this is all me. I've had a good amount of success, and a good amount of success has come from friends and people supporting me. I'm not talking about me specifically. I'm talking about so many people that I've talked to, so many people that have wanted to do something but can't find themselves to do it. I definitely feel like it's a life mission of mine to tell people, hey, you're special. You can do it, And I'm so like that with every single one of my friends that I know, who try and do something, and who have connected with me. I am so passionate about liking what they do and sending them a message about what they've done, sending them something that's not generic but really actually truthful. I don't know if people have these like truthful feelings when they see something that their friends do, but I do, and I always tell it. I told it to my previous girlfriends, and I dated a photographer, and the first day that I saw her portfolio, I was like, you're gonna be mega famous. Like, this photography is stunning. It's got something else. It makes me feel a certain way, and she's famous. I had a girlfriend who was a musician, and when I first heard her music on a rooftop in New York, I was like, wow, this is actually really, really special. And she ended up getting like a record contract and all this kind of stuff. Not saying that I'm a talent scout or anything. I'm just saying that I see beauty in human expression, and I feel it. And I always have something to say. And so in regards to my own creativity, that usually comes in the form of people on Instagram who don't even really know me. That's where I get most of my my really, really like genuine, heartfelt appreciation and connectedness to what I say and what I do. And I don't even judge the immediate people around me for not being like that at all. I'm just saying what I have appeals to a certain amount of people and a specific kind of person, and if they relate to it, they relate to it, and that's fine. And my friends might not relate to it, and that doesn't mean that they think I'm crap. Then they're probably happy for me, but I just mean like do people have a genuine feeling of expressing themselves, like a genuine feeling when listening to another person's creativity and expression? Do they have a genuine, honest feeling about, like a deep feeling? And do they hold it back because they don't feel like their opinion's wanted, or what they have to say is worthless, or something like that, which I definitely feel is the case in the majority of situations. But that's what I'm saying. So I'm up here, and it's 3 a.m. now, 3:25 a.m. now, and I just had to get out my thoughts and feelings and come and say what I wanted to say, and resolutely state that I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna have to try and remind myself that no matter what I say, whether it's good or bad, not thought through, or etc., I need to say it, and I need to get it out, and I need to speak. I need to speak until I've got nothing else to say, because I'm doing an injustice to myself if I don't do it, and if I don't say it. It's important to find the right platform to really be able to speak about it. Hey, this is Tea with Jamie. This is my podcast. I'm going to say whatever the hell I like, and that's just the way that it's going to be. It's always going to be like that on this podcast. This is my therapy mandated way of expressing some of these uncomfortable feelings that I have in a world where I don't feel particularly safe to really express myself. I can't be a vulnerable man. No, I can't be a vulnerable man. I can't be an emotional man. I can't be a depressed man. Everything has to be good. Everything has to be positive. If I talk about my own mental state, all I hear back is, oh, my mental state is worse, or oh, I don't ever have that mental state. Like, I'm great. And it's not about that. It's about someone else is experiencing something, and to acknowledge that and to try and connect to that and find a common ground, like it's all about finding common ground. That's what life's about. That's what humanity's about. That's what existence is about. And yeah, I think it's really, really important to do and say that. And I just feel as though in this kind of like hollow world of social media and Instagram and Twitter and Reddit and all these like faceless situations, it's not enough to put myself out on there, because I need video or voice, specifically voice, to be able to voice what I'm saying with my actual physical voice, because then it can't be interpreted in any kind of way. You can hear what I'm trying to say. You can hear the tone that I'm saying it. And I say everything with love, and even if I do have negative opinions, it's not as if the world is ending. I can have negative opinions and while still within myself have capacity for positivity. But today I had a lot in myself and I didn't have anywhere else to say it, and so I said it on this podcast. And this is Tea Time with Jamie. And if you've listened this far, send me a message, because I love you, and I really, really appreciate it so much. And I hope you all have a lovely day. In your day today, please stand up for yourself. Say how you think and feel. If you're someone that knows me, or if you don't know me, send me a message and tell me how you think and feel. If you feel like you need to talk about it, you need to say something. You need to talk about something that's on your mind and that's got you all up in a tizzy inside yourself, and you have those emotions going and all that kind of stuff. Send it to me. Ask a friend. Talk it out. Stand up for yourself. Your opinions and your ideas, they have merit. Whether you think that they don't or not, they have merit. They're never going to grow unless you speak them aloud. There's no standing down. There's no being quiet. We live one life. We've got one existence. And this is Tea Time with Jamie. Thank you very much for listening.